A wonderful way to end our morning offering program each and every day is with a chat with Pat.
Yeah, and today we have with us Andrew Peach. Andrew is a former philosophy professor and a current attorney, co author of An Introduction to Catholic Ethics, a text used for Catholic high schools across the United States. He's published in various journals: The Thomist, Philosophical Investigations, First Things, Journal of History of Philosophy, Crisis Magazine, Touchstone Magazine. So he and his wife Catherine have 4 children and many more places he's published. Andrew, welcome. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me on. This is very exciting.
Oh, well, Andrew, I love this article, and I could probably talk to you for hours about this, but you were an ethics professor, and you said, looking back, you do it differently. And one of the things that caught my attention in the article was you said that, so often we start with kind of the hot button issues to grab our students' attentions, but you really think those need to be on the back burner in an ethics class. Why?
Yeah. As I thought about how I taught the course when I was a young guy, I was just like, I got to throw the red meat out there to get their attention.
Right.
And so I give myself a little leeway there. But, as I become older, tried to become a better person. I don't really care what someone's opinion on the Iran war is. I mean, I kind of do, but it doesn't tell me a lot about them. But if I know, the way that they spend money, the way that they speak, the way that they, whether or not they're humble, how they use their resources, kind of the everyday ethics things are really the sort of the meat and potatoes. And as I went through my own sort of personal struggles to become a better person, it wasn't really the intellectual challenges of just war theory or same-sex marriage or whatever. It's just, how do I guard my tongue?
Right.
How do I eat well without being gluttonous? How do I not speak evil of others? How do I spend my money on good things? And it just struck me, this is what we should be teaching young people, not these clickbait culture war issues, which are very important, but they're kind of down the line.
So how do you kind of discern what you call in this article little virtues, and how are they different from kind of what we teach in virtue education, the cardinal virtues and the theological virtues?
I'm not too sure there's too much of a difference. I mean, look, you need a hook when you write an article, right? I mean, but yeah, and there's no doubt that it's not like they're another category of virtues. I mean, the cardinal virtues cover the terrain. Every virtue is going to fall into one of those 4 buckets, and every virtue is going to have a flavor of all 4 buckets.
Right.
But I just meant little virtues in the sense of, like, they're not necessarily recognized. They're not trumpeted. They don't have articles on the website about them. They're little in the sense of, like, Therese, her little gestures, just little kindnesses, and things like, you could say something here and it would be true, but don't say it. Or, you could make a little gesture here or there. That's what I meant by little ways. Not that it was like a whole new category of virtue I found. I think it was just more of an emphasis on the small day to day.
It sounds to me like you are, what you would like to do is almost refocus in the sense of how do they just not academically know what these things are and what they look like in the world, but how do I pull them into my own personal daily living, right? I mean, is that kind of what you're getting at? Like, how do I be temperate? What are the things I need to be temperate about in my daily life, and how do I do that? Almost a self-reflective process that would then lead to almost conversion of heart, right? A change of character.
Yeah, Professor, that's exactly right. I mean, just to get autobiographical here for a minute, I think.
Sure.
So in the last 15 years, I've kind of left academic philosophy and academic ethics kind of on the back burner, and I've just taken a deep dive into what's traditionally called spiritual theology. So John of the Cross, Ignatius of Loyola, Therese, Teresa of Avila. I've read all those people front to back.
Right.
And my sort of personal project has been, I want to be united with God. I want to reach what they call the unitive way. But the way through there is through the purgative way first and foremost, and then through what they call the illuminative way. But if you try to do the purgative way, like, I don't really need, to do any navel gazing to figure out what the right thing to do is. I think C.S. Lewis somewhere wrote that, most good philosophy is just reminding us of what we already know. It's not teaching us new things. And so I think these kinds of basic things about speech and wealth and desires and humility, we kind of already know them. The trick is to have them take hold.
Right.
And that is very difficult.
Yeah.
And that's where you need grace, prayer, as well as practice through virtue.
Yeah. So how do you then tie these little virtues? How do they impact then what we would consider the hot button issues, right? Why, we talked a little bit about why it's important to start with the little virtues, but they obviously do have something to do with the big hot button issues, right?
Oh, there's no question. And so I would say, for example, one of the issues I tackled in the column was, the hot button issue of abortion. And, I think if you dive into that as just straight an academic question, you get these academic arguments both ways. But if you've started as a young person practicing these little virtues, what you've learned is humility. And what humility means is an objective realization that every single thing that you have is a gift from God. And if you've practiced the little virtues, which means that you don't speak ill of other people, you start to see other people as real people. You start to see other human beings as made in the likeness and image of God. And you start to practice the theological virtue of charity. And as you do these kinds of things, you make sacrifices, you give money to other people, I think that this question then becomes it just becomes inconceivable that you would ever go down that road. You would see the child as a gift of God, and it would never seriously cross your mind that this would ever be an option. And so, that's the example I used in the
article.
In the article.
Yeah.
But you could make other, I don't know how kind of time we have, but you make the same kinds of connections. I would think with bigger and broader issues, like for war, it's the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
The little virtues give you a genuine recognition of the humanity of the person on the other side of this dispute, and it puts things in more clear perspective.
Yeah. I think, you make so many good points in this article. Being an ethics professor myself, I think that is, it's so true to try to get, I think we have people focus outside because it's less threatening, but yet we've got to pull it to the inside to actually have them live it, right?
Totally. Yeah, I think, any plan of action is going to fall flat unless it starts with interior transformation. That's not just me. That's every spiritual giant who's ever said that.
Oh, well, I could talk to you forever, Andrew, about this. This was an excellent article. Thanks for being with us today, and have a great week ahead.
Thanks so much, Professor. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.